Hi guys, I'm editing today's video, and to tell you the truth, there are a lot of problems with this video. Let me enumerate them. Number one, on a technical level, something happened with one of the cameras that the focus stayed fixed, and of course I'm out of focus in every one of the shots from that camera. Okay, so you're gonna have to forgive that. On the other hand, again, a little technical issue. Stupidly, I left the thumbnail of another video that I've recorded that I'm going to be posting in a little bit. I left it up on the computer, and so it just keeps referencing that title as opposed to the title of today's video, which is Women, 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 exclamation mark after every word. And it really bothers me. You know, my autism is flowering, right? But apart from the technical problems, right, the formal problems, the thing is, see, I think that this video is kind of like all over the place because frankly, I'm working out my ideas. And so you're going to have to forgive me with this video. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. I don't think you're going to be losing much because basically I'm trying to work out what I think about different issues relating to the man-woman situation. And why am I working them out? Well, because I'm working on a book about this stuff, right? And so, yeah, this video, it's not one of my better videos. I think it kind of sucks. So I'm telling you from the get-go, so if you don't want to waste your time on it, my feelings will not be hurt. Okay? Okay, take it easy. So the other day I was reading some anthropology things, some article, whatever the hell, and they were talking about this primitive tribe that was lost in the Amazon jungle, right? And the thing that they were most surprised about was the fact that 70% of the men died by violence, usually before the age of 40. Yeah, I'm 51, so I'd be dead like more than a decade ago, right? Yeah, 70% of the men died by violence. But it wasn't just that like a different tribe would come over and attack the tribe. No. A lot of times it was internal within the tribe that they'd be killing each other. Yeah, the men, grown men, would be killing each other. And they asked the headman, the shaman or whatever of the primitive tribe, why were they killing one another? And you know what the old man said? Women, women, women. Yes, of course it had to be women. Yes, of course. I mean, look at every other species of living organism on the face of this earth, right? The males kill one another to have the opportunity to mate. Yeah, you've seen deer, right? The big stags, right? With all the horns and stuff, and they clash with one another. Why do you think they're fighting? Yeah, for kicks? Because they're bored? No. Because they want to establish dominance so that they can mate with the females around. Yeah. And these clashes with the deer, at least, and a lot of other mammals and a lot of other insects and birds and every other animal on the face of this earth, a lot of these clashes are deadly. It's not that they clash and then they break off and go their separate ways. No, a lot of times it's to the death. And a lot of times it's not just that one dies. Sometimes both of them die from their wounds. Yeah. Think how serious this is, right? An animal willing to die in order to mate. And we're people, ergo mammals, ergo just another kind of animal, right? What, you think it was going to be different with us? Now, we don't realize this truth because we are living in this fabulous civilization that has figured out a way to sublimate men's instinct to murder one another for women. And instead of doing that, what we do is we cooperate. We cooperate and we have other ways of competing for women. Yeah, that's what's going on. And we are living in an exceptional time. The civilization that we have today, it's not normal. No. The civilization that we've had over the last, a couple of thousand years, it is exceptional. It is exceptional because for hundreds of thousands of years before that, millions of years before that, we were killing one another in order to mate. And that's the truth of the matter. And the fact is, we've forgotten this truth. Yeah, because we live in this great contemporary civilization, right? Where everything is so incredibly structured.
and everybody has very clear roles, and most important of all, violence has been outlawed. The only people who can inflict violence is the state, through accredited state agents such as the police and the military and the judicial system, right? They have a monopoly on violence. No other person who is not a state agent can inflict violence on somebody else. Extenuating circumstances, self-defense and such, accepted, of course. But the point I'm trying to make is that, see, we have created this wonderful civilization that outlawed violence. And because of it, we are no longer trying to kill one another in order to get mates. But it's created other problems. Yeah, but these other problems are quite minor in comparison. And the fact of the matter is, we talk about incels a lot of times, right? We talk about these guys who are involuntary celibates who don't have access to women. No, that's unfortunate, right? But what do you prefer? Them to be playing video games and having a miserable life, or them to be slaughtered in some sort of, some sort of violent clash with a bunch of Chads or whatever, right? I mean, you got to pick your poison, and which is worse, right? Me personally, I think that the lack of violence in our contemporary civilization is much better than a violence-filled civilization, right? I mean, I don't think that I need to really defend that point of view. But the point, and the point of this video, is that, see, though we no longer are killing one another over women, we have passed that sweet spot where every man and every woman paired up. And we've gone into an area that is progressively more and more dangerous. And let me explain. Like the head man in the Amazonian tribe said, men were fighting over women. Women, 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 right? We created this wonderful civilization, and it took a long time till we got to this sort of like a little bit nostalgia-filled Eden that we have of the period between, say, the 1900s and the 1950s, before the sexual revolution, the so-called sexual revolution, right? Where everyone paired up and everybody was happy. And a guy who was very, very attractive might wind up pairing up with a very, very attractive girl. But even the lowliest guy, maybe he wasn't that attractive, but if he was a decent, hardworking guy, he'd pair up with some girl. And that is more or less the nostalgic vision that we have of the past. And it's more or less accurate, to tell you the truth. Most men, most women in the United States and the Western democracies pretty much paired up and were able to form successful families. But then came the sexual revolution. The sexual revolution started off because of the pill. It was invented or came to the market roughly in 1963, 64, something like that. And because of that, women were able to have as much sexual activity as they wanted without fear of getting pregnant. That's why the pill kicked off the sexual revolution. Because before, women were very hesitant to have a sexual relationship with a man, because if she got pregnant, who was going to take care of her and the kid? So she had to be very, very sure, very, very confident that the man that she was sleeping with would, quote unquote, man up, would step up to the plate, take care of her and the kid. But after the advent of the pill, women didn't worry about that anymore. Yeah, they weren't going to get pregnant because of the pill. And so they could have sex with whomever they wanted. Not necessarily a guy who was going to be a good provider. Yeah, because in the past, before the pill, a woman might have found some guy very, very sexy and wanted to bang his brains out. But she would have known that, that Chad is not going to stick around and raise her kid, and so she wouldn't have, because of that fear, right? But with the advent of the pill, with the removal of pregnancy as a worry, a woman could go and, rather than have sex with the boyfriend or the dependable potential future mate, she could have sex with the Chad. She could have sex with a bad boy. She could have sex with whomever she wanted, no matter how awful the guy might be, because it was going to be a passing thing. She'd have sex with him, and if it didn't work out, she could just leave and there'd be no repercussions, lickety-split, and she's done. Now, of course, this was great for women because they could have sex with whomever they wanted, and they started going after the more attractive men. But how good was it for most other men, the not so attractive men? Huh? Terrible, of course. Yeah, I mean, most not so attractive men who don't have some sort of superficial charm or something that could draw in the women, right? Well, they would have a tough time finding a mate. A tough time finding a mate. And because of it, a lot of these men found themselves pandering to women, catering to women's whims, and trying to contort themselves into whatever the woman would want. Now that's bad enough. But then something worse happened. With the communications technology, internet and so forth, and the ability to find potential mates anywhere on the globe, or at least in a very wide area of wherever the girl is living, right? She started looking for the better and better guy because he was out there. All she had to do was just Google him enough, find him on Match.com or whatever other dating app or what have you, Tinder and whatnot, right? And so there was a greater, or let me rephrase that, there has become a greater and greater pool of men who don't have anybody and have no prospect of having a mate. And what do you think happens to a bunch of men who don't have any prospects of getting a mate, whose resentment builds day by day, and yet they are not allowed to use any kind of violent means or any kind of means that would fit in their mentality in order to get a woman? What do you think happens? Apart from resentment, of course. What do you think happens? Huh? 3 guesses. You only need 1 guess. It leads to violence, inevitably. If there is a group of men, or even one guy, who is severely frustrated and knows for a fact that he will never get a woman, this resentment and frustration will express itself by way of violence. It's inevitable. Because the drive to procreate is the most primal and strongest drive that human beings have. And if we have created a society such that there is a substantial pool of men who will never, ever have access to women and never, ever be able to form a family, they will eventually explode. It's a powder keg that you are filling up 1 grain at a time with every single guy who is a loser in this deregulated sexual marketplace. It is inevitable that you are going to have an explosion. I've said this before. I think that so much of this leftist notion that things are a social construct is so much nonsense. Oh, racism, this and that, it's a social construct. Screw that. But in the case of this disenfranchised group of men, this group of men, which is getting larger every day, that do not have access to women, that do not have access to potential mate, and have no way to achieve that, well, then it's inevitable that violence will arise. Violence on a low scale, on an individual scale, of rape, violent sexual assault, and on a larger scale, organized group of men attacking women. And in point of fact, we're seeing this already. The Pakistani rape gangs in the UK. Oh yeah. The Pakistani rape gangs are basically men who are sexually disenfranchised. And so they are grooming these English girls into becoming sex slaves. And they are raping them and violently, viciously abusing them. Why? Why? Because these Pakistanis are evil? No! Because they are sexually frustrated. That's what's going on. They are sexually frustrated. They are basically incels. And because they are involuntary celibates, right, they are expressing their frustration in violence towards these young girls. That's what's going on. And of course, I have nothing but compassion for the victims of these sex gangs, right? But it's important that compassion though you might have, and vilification of these Pakistani rape gangs, which is merited, yes, but it's important to understand something. It doesn't excuse it, but you need to understand what's going on. The Pakistani rape gangs are the result of this deregulated sexual marketplace in the West. Yes, and there are going to be more of these rape gangs. Yeah, and not just Pakistani. They're going to be of all kinds of ethnicities. It's not really going to matter. Yeah, you're going to have more of them, and they're going to be more and more vicious. It's the result of what our society has built. Our society created this condition. It didn't come out of the blue. No, it was made by people. Oh yeah. I started off this video by telling you that statistic, that 70% of adult men in these, tribesmen in the Amazon, they died by violence. And most of the time it was fighting over women, either inside the tribe or with other tribes, right? 70% of the men died by violence. Think of that. That's basically 2 out of 3 men would die by violence over women. That's how strong of a drive this is. And to pretend otherwise, to ignore it, is stupid. And to not be realizing how the growing issue of involuntary celibates will have catastrophic effects on our society. Well, you're just sticking your head in the sand. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of leftists who are vitriolic in their condemnation of involuntary celibates, which I do understand. Let me get to it in a second, which I find remarkable. Okay, let's put it that way. Well, this vilification is, I believe, on the left, a realization that it's a grossly unfair system that we've created. The socio-sexual marketplace that we have right now, where the guys at the top 10, 20% get all the women, and the very bottom 30, 40, 50% get nothing, that is a grossly unfair system. But it's a system we currently have. And more to the point, it's a system where a lot of the more powerful members of the society want to maintain it, to continue it. They are not thinking about the enormous pool of disenfranchised, resentful men that they are creating by the system. And this pool of men, like I said before, it's a powder keg, and it will explode. Yeah, this is a video of just some thoughts about this issue. I think it's going to get really, really nasty before it gets any better.